Jeff Dye's friendship. Jeff Dye's friendship. Jeff Dye's friendship. Jeff Dye's friendship. Jeff Dye has friends. No, really, Jeff has friends. Jeff's friends are on this podcast. Jeff Dye's friendship. Jeff Dye's friendship. Jeff Dye's friendship. Jeff Dye's friendship.
Friendship.
Welcome back to the Jeff Dye's Friendship Podcast, episode like 75 or something. I don't know. Stop keeping track. We're getting tons of money from this podcast, tons of clicks, tons of reviews. Millions of people are listening. Everyone's just going crazy about this thing. So we really appreciate it. We love you guys. Big shout out to all the patrons that can see me right now. And for all the people that can't see me right now, they don't know what I'm doing. Only the patrons get to see this. So you're welcome. If you want to watch the podcast, become a Patreon member. Just go to patreon.com/Jeff Dye. And you can watch the podcast and hear the podcast and get free comedy club tickets, free little goodies, exclusive content, and all sorts of crud like that. This week's episode is featured friend Brian Kiley. He writes for Conan O'Brien. He's also done stand-up on Conan O'Brien. He's a very funny comedian. He did Letterman. He's done Jay Leno. The dude's been in comedy for a really long time. He's behind the scenes. He's in front of the camera. He's behind the camera. This guy is such a great dude. I've known him for a long time because we have the same home club, Comedy Magic Club. And so I've gotten to know him pretty well. I know he's a good dad. I know he's a good family man. I know he loves baseball. And we're going to talk about all that. I know you guys are going to enjoy this. Thanks for tuning back in. Don't forget to rate, subscribe, and comment. And enjoy the episode. It's a fun one. And we're in. Welcome to Jeff Dye's Friendship Podcast, episode 986, getting millions and millions of dollars, millions and millions of views. This is all real information. It's the #1 podcast on iTunes, and we thank you guys for listening and reviewing and subscribing and giving us all these great ratings. In the house, as usual, is me, Jeff Dye. I'm on this poster. I'm on the poster. It's called My Friendship. But with me, as usual, my friends, Tony Reavis. Thanks for being here, bud.
Jeff, I am so happy to be here.
Yeah, you look good.
Making a turn from last week's when I was
a little grumpy,
standoffish. Yeah. I'm so happy to be here.
That's why I went to Pittsburgh for so long. Because I was like, you know what? If I leave, maybe these guys will appreciate me a little bit more.
It worked.
Yeah. Aaron Marsh.
Now I feel like I should be sad to be here. It's been a real rough week for us Cubs fans with 3 All-Stars in and everything.
Well, that's pretty good, I think.
Not for us. Not this year.
For the Mariners. We're very
actually, it's been fantastic.
We have 3 and we're like, what?
Yeah. We got to get Mean Gene in. And this week's featured guest, I'm so excited to have him. I'm so excited that you're here. I got to know you somewhat at the Comedy Magic Club.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Get to share a green room with you, which was like a great honor. Stand-up comedian, you've done Leno, you've done Letterman, you've done Conan O'Brien. I like you because you're in front of the camera and behind the camera, which not everyone does. Usually they pick a side, but not you. You do both.
Sure.
And also you're great at both.
Well, thanks.
And I love that you commit to the joke. That's one of my favorite things about you. And I was saying this before you came over here. I love that in the green room, no matter how horrific a comedian tries to go for the joke or how off base they are with the joke or how corny the joke is, you appreciate that they're just going for the joke.
I do like them going for the joke.
And I like that about
Sure.
you. That even when it's not in your taste, you'll be like, I watch you smile and go like, all right, I know what he was trying to do here. Also, you love baseball. I love baseball.
Sure.
I'm just so happy to have you on the podcast.
I'm happy that I'm your 986th friend. Do you know
Absolutely.
what I mean?
Yeah,
To
yeah.
crack the top 1,000? That's pretty good.
I think you should say, you didn't say his name. Just like
Yeah, Brian Kiley's in the house. Yeah, there we go. Kiley.
let the people know.
That's right. Sorry, I got carried away. I got all excited. I started marking out, as we say in wrestling.
That's right.
So you said when you said, I'll text you when I get off of work. Where were you coming from work?
Okay, so I write for Conan O'Brien. I've actually been on his show for 24 years.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah, we're in Burbank over at the Warner Brothers lot. Yeah.
Nice. I was hoping you'd be like, oh, Ralph's grocery store.
Well, I do have to stop there too, actually.
No, so writing on that show, what is an average day for like you writing on? I don't think people know about this. In fact, I've been in comedy for a long time and I've been like a big comedy nerd my whole life, and I have no idea what a writing job looks like.
Well, it's different depending on the kind of, if you're writing on a sitcom or if you're writing on a drama or if you're writing on whatever. So this is a late night show. My day started around 9. I spend the first hour just looking for premises, just kind of seeing what stuff that we're gonna.
How do you do that?
Yeah, is that just searching the news?
Yep, searching the websites. USAtoday.com, CNN.com, all the 10 different websites, finding premises, stuff that he's going to talk about. So if there's 800 people killed in a car accident, where it's going to be a big pileup. But
I was thinking that's one big car.
we're that's like the super Uber pool or something.
Man.
Like that's the kind of thing we won't be joking about. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So it's finding areas.
Well, you'd be joking about it in the writer's room, but not, not
Yes.
on the show.
Not on the show. And so trying to figure out what stuff he's going to talk about. So there's 3 of us working on the monologue team. Lori Kilmartin, who
Yes, who I love.
great stand-up, wonderful person. My friend Rob Kuttner, who's a joke machine. So the 3 of us separately in our own offices look up premises, compile them, we'll share them, and then we'll do that for about an hour. It takes an hour to kind of figure out what you're going to talk about. Then we'll spend the next hour and a half in our separate still in our own offices writing our jokes. So we'll each write about 15 or so,
Okay.
and then we'll compile them. We have a meeting, and the 3 of us will read through them. And sometimes someone's joke, you might go, oh, there's another joke maybe you could do about this. Or sometimes you might tweak someone's joke, say, maybe you don't need that part, maybe if, or whatever. So we do that for about a half an hour. Then we send the batch to Conan.
Okay.
Go
How do you send it to him?
just give it to the writer's assistant.
Okay, then he brings it to him.
Yeah, it's a she.
Oh, it's a girl. Sorry.
That's okay.
It's
I
2018,
presumed,
Jeff.
just
I
because
know.
I'm a pig.
That's right.
Lori would hate that I
Yeah.
presumed it's a guy.
You have to be careful.
And that's how you learned to
That's
correct
true.
those things.
Believe
Like,
me,
hey,
you work,
Jeff.
you work with Lori
I'm working with
Kilmartin long
Lori.
enough. You don't make those mistakes. I thought you were a woman till I got here.
Yeah, like, I don't see gender anymore. I've been working with Lori for a long time.
So then we go to lunch, and then Conan will read through the jokes, and he'll mark the ones he liked. And then also he'll pick the area so that it might be like, it's the president's birthday today. We got to do a joke about that or whatever, So then we'll write jokes off the ones, the areas that he picked. We'll write another batch, send them into to the writer's assistant. Then she'll we'll have a meeting around 2:30 when we meet with Conan, and he reads through the new jokes and picks the ones he likes. Then he looks through the ones he liked earlier,
Mhm.
and sometimes it's like, it's like you liked it an hour
Yeah.
ago. What happened?
Yeah.
So that happens a lot. Or sometimes maybe we've got a better joke on the same topic or something
Sure.
like that. Or sometimes he just sours on one.
Yeah.
So
Is there ever a time where he picked all yours, or he picked all of Lori's, or he
You-
picks
you
none
get
of
a
yours
dance
maybe
on
a
the
day?
table.
Like,
yeah.
you're like, I got none in tonight.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's nothing, you get the goose egg. And still, after all these years, I'm like, what? None?
I worked all day.
Yeah.
It's like baseball.
Yeah. And then other days where you're like, oh, I know how to do this. I'm on fire. And then
Yeah.
no, you don't. The next day you get none.
Sure,
You know what
which
I
is
mean?
like
So-
stand up in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it
you
really
bomb
is.
one night and crush the next.
Yeah. And you think you've got it figured out, and no one ever has it figured out,
Yeah.
So so he'll go through the 2 batches and pick the ones he likes. And those are going to go on cue cards. And then he might say, we still never got a good joke about the president's birthday, or whatever, there might be a couple other areas. So the last batch is just sort of our last gasp.
Yeah.
And that's where you might have the most ridiculous joke you've ever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where it's like you're just taking these Hail Mary passes,
Right.
And sometimes it's like, why would you put that in? But sometimes some crazy joke that you throw at the last minute, they're like, oh, that's great. We're going to close
Yeah.
with that. You're like, what?
Or
You know
he
what
can
I
like
mean?
pull it off.
Yeah,
Like does
yeah.
some silly act out or something.
Absolutely. So the last one is sort of our last gasp. And batch 3, I think we're a little less discerning. Batch one, you're like, I'm not going to put this in. But by batch three, you're like, all right,
Yeah.
now he's getting it.
Yeah.
So, and then we meet from 4 to 4:30. And Andy's in there, Andy
Yeah,
Richter,
love
and
him.
our producer.
Does he live around here, by the way? I've seen him like 20 times
Oh,
at
really?
restaurants around here.
He lives.
Okay, so that makes sense.
I'll plug the address later.
yeah. I think I was asking
No,
that
you
just
can
like
do that
personal.
on the air.
Yeah.
We actually have a.
We can have Tony put a little blank spot what
Sure,
city he
sure.
lives in, but I just wanted to know because I see him around.
Yeah. And then our producer's there, and our head writer, and our a couple of other producers, and he reads through the jokes on the cue cards, and we kind of get a consensus in the room what's getting laughs and what's not. And even like today, there was some joke that we had about Japan. That was just an innocuous thing. But then there was this tragedy in Japan. It had nothing to do with
no.
it. And I'm like, we shouldn't mention Japan. Do you know
Just-
what I mean?
yeah.
Even though the joke had absolutely nothing to do with it and whatever, it's just referencing that's a bad idea or whatever.
Yeah, because some audience person in a living room somewhere is gonna go, wow, why are they making fun of Japan? And then you're gonna get a
I
letter.
know, and it wasn't even, and you just go,
Yeah.
okay, let's not mention it, whatever, that kind of thing. So we'll pick the jokes and we pick the order, and he's usually, you try to have a natural opening of what you'd be talking about in a normal conversation. Like tonight, he came out and talked about the heat,
Right.
that kind of thing. And then the last joke is usually our dirtiest joke. As you know from stand-up, you kind of
build it.
You build it to the dirtiest thing, or whatever, and then that's the monologue. And then during the show, the head writer will give us an assignment to write something else for the other part of the show, for the next day or for that week or whatever. So you might pitch a sketch idea or something like that, and as a monologue writer, you probably won't produce it because you're too busy the next day writing the monologue.
Sure.
But if they like it, they'll have someone else do it or whatever. So you do that from 4:30 to 6 or so, and then we usually meet from either 6 to 6:30 or 6 to 7 or whatever, depending on how we're doing.
Yeah.
So that's our day.
That's the whole day. It sounds
Yeah.
like it's such a process.
yeah.
It sounds like professional Twitter.
Well, the other thing about it is that it's like military time. I could tell you exactly when I'm eating, when I'm getting
Oh,
my
wow.
coffee, when I'm doing.
But that's
you know what I mean?
great.
Yeah.
It's like precision.
Yeah.
The same time every day. I'm doing the
Wait,
exact
so you
same
got
things.
3 comics also on precision like that? It's like herding cats.
Yeah, that's true. But things have to be in at a certain time and all.
So
that
do you
stuff.
get annoyed, or I guess this might be a kind of a pedestrian question, but what if it's a slow like news week?
Mhm.
Does the stories start getting more preposterous, like where you like have to dig a little deeper, and now you have
Yes.
to inform the audience of what the current event is?
Yes, absolutely. That stuff will happen where, you'll be, you going on these obscure sites or finding these tiny stories where, a woman found an onion that looks like Richard Nixon, so or whatever, and it's like, what? You know what I mean? And so you get these stories like, where did you find
Yeah.
and he'll mock us
By 3 o'clock, you're like,
for
has a
these-
celebrity died yet
Yes,
today? Can
yeah,
we-
and it's just funny where he's like, where'd you get these? Like, Cher had a cookie? That's the premise? You know what I mean? Like, what are you talking about? So
I imagine it happens.
yeah, that does happen. I mean, the worst was when I was first on the show. There was like pre-internet,
Oh,
24 years ago, and they had the Oklahoma City bombing,
right.
and that just dominated the news, and you couldn't, of course, touch it. And those little state-by-state things in the USA Today?
Yeah.
So he'd come on and be like, oh, you hear about this comptroller and Dayton, Ohio? No, we didn't. What are you talking about? Do you know what I mean? But, there's nothing that we can touch. So
Yeah.
it's just like more,
Which seemed to be Jay Leno's formula for a long time. And I love Jay. I don't mean any disrespect to him, but like, he would do a thing where he's like, you heard about this? You heard about this? This woman knows what cats can think. And you're like, of course, he's setting us up for a stupid joke. Because
Right,
he was
right.
so preposterous in the setup that like we're totally expecting a misdirection. We're like,
Right.
of course, you've made up a story that you're gonna. Here's a weird thing. There are certain attributes in my life where I'm very selfish. I don't think I'm a selfish guy, but there's certain things that I am, which is why I don't think I'd make a very good writer, because I would want a joke
Sure.
that I wrote instead of giving it
Yeah,
to
how
Conan.
often do you keep it? Like if he's like, I don't want that, you're like, I do.
Well, it's funny because I didn't want to have that moral dilemma every day.
Sure.
So, and before I got the job, I used to do a lot of topical stuff in my act. But the thing about topical stuff, it has such a short shelf life.
Yep.
And so I just decided it's like, all right, I'm just going to give him everything topical and I'll just keep everything personal for myself. So when I first started, if I did 45 minutes, like 25 minutes would be topical. So I lost like 25 minutes right
Yeah.
away, you know?
Yeah, of course.
But I never built that stuff back up. It's like, it's like,
Well, because like an Obama joke, you can use it for 8 years.
yeah, that's true. And that's actually that's a good point, because as a comic, if you have a great Obama joke, you're doing it for 8 years
Yeah.
or whatever, or even more. You might even be like, when Obama was in there,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? That kind of thing. But here, you might have a great Obama joke and he does it and that's it. And then, okay, what's next? And
Right.
you're like, oh, he wants another one. And
Yeah,
you're like,
someone doesn't watch Conan on Wednesday, and there's all these great jokes were missed. I feel like that's just the death of these great jokes.
Well, I do. I always feel like I'm writing and I'm just driving down the highway. I'm just throwing the jokes out the window. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like they're immediately gone, But I kind of made that decision. So I just keep anything personal for me, for my life. And then I just give him all the topical stuff and just so that there isn't that.
Can I ask what's your favorite joke that you wrote that did not make the air?
Um,
I'm not gonna know if you're wrong on it later.
I don't. It's funny. They I don't know. I'd have to think about that. There's
millions.
there's so many,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and they also you just don't retain them. I remember when I was first on the show, we had a joke about some guy had fallen in a vat of cheese. That was the story.
Oh my God.
And I
Hear about
said
this?
something like, he's getting better with age. Was the joke, whatever. But the guy was like seriously hurt, so we
Yeah,
couldn't
yeah.
do it.
Oh.
But then, like a couple weeks later, we'd have a slow day or a bad day. We couldn't come up with.
Hey, what
stuff.
about that cheese guy?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Conan's going, is the guy with the cheese any better? You know what I mean?
Remember a week ago when we couldn't talk about that? That's amazing. I just can't imagine. So, like when you first had the job, because it's been so long, it must have been a little bit of nerves or like pressure of like, if I don't really deliver.
Oh,
Whereas
yeah.
now, I'm sure that you have.
It's the pressure's gotten less just because I've been there. So, and you can, I still feel bad if I have a bad day, but I'm not like, oh my God,
Right.
that kind of thing. And also the show was very shaky in the old days, in the beginning. Do you know what I mean?
I loved it.
It's a new show, but you didn't know whether,
Yeah.
and they were
Yeah, and that
constantly,
energy was felt on the show, which made it kind of lovable.
It was, it made it
Yeah.
endearing.
so yeah.
It felt raw. Like it
Yeah,
felt
it's
like,
still on
yeah.
YouTube and still feels awesome.
Oh, I
you
love
can go
it.
back and watch them.
Well, it definitely had that raw feeling. It's like, when you're starting out in comedy, it's that kind of feeling, So yeah, and you'd be reading the New York Post, the Daily News, and there'd be like stories about who's going to replace Conan, and you're like, what?
Wait a minute.
Yeah. Yeah. So that before the show got established, there was definitely, I think everybody felt that pressure.
When was Conan a stand-up?
No.
Yeah, and so you're writing kind of stand-up,
Right.
for a guy that never did stand-up.
Yeah. I mean, he's the funniest guy in the world. I'm amazed at, you and I are lucky that we get to hang around really funny people all
Yeah.
the time, and you'll be in the green room somewhere and people that are so quick and whatever. But Conan will do this thing where he will just riff on something off the cuff and it'll be like 5 minutes in a row of funny. It's like, wait, you just created this thing out of whole cloth for 5 minutes? Like that's the stuff that I was like, okay.
Yeah, he deserves a show.
I've never
Yeah.
seen this before, And so he's really a brilliant guy. And you could see even when he was shaky in the beginning, he'd come in the writer's room or whatever, and you'd be like, that was the funniest thing I ever heard. Like it was really, you could see how inventive he was. And also I was expecting, I show up, he's this Harvard guy, he's like summa cum laude from Harvard, whatever, all this stuff. And I was expecting him to just be sort of witty and urbane or whatever. He is so silly.
Yeah.
He is so incredibly silly. And then, my friend who was working on the show, Chuck Sklar, was like, he wrote for The Simpsons, so he has that kind of cartoonish, very visual sense of humor.
Yeah,
or
that's what me
whatever.
and Aaron, we love anything like mascots make us
Yes.
crack up. Like I
Yes.
can like animals and clothes, like all the things I love the most is there's not a hard edge to any of it really.
No, and
It's like
not,
Simpsons.
It's not. It's just silly. It's just
Yeah.
incredibly silly.
Yeah, and even when you look at the things that he has a hard edge about, it's a dog puppet who's mean to people.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, or like one of my favorite gags that they ever did on Conan O'Brien, and I haven't looked for it in years, but I remember I used to watch it all the time. Like about 5 years ago, I'd watch it like probably weekly. It was a security surveillance of Mother Teresa.
Oh my God! Yes, trashing her hotel
trashing
room.
her hotel room.
Yes.
Because they didn't give her a wake up call, and so since it's like a crummy surveillance camera, it's just like an actress in the cut, but she's just breaking things and like, oh, why no wake up call? It's so simple.
It is
so funny.
So funny. And her trashing the room. And she goes out, and it's actually a guy playing her. But he goes out of frame, and comes back in. It's so funny.
I don't know why it makes me laugh so much, but like
because it's just funny.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's preposterous.
That's one of my favorite things too. I love that bit.
Has that been on that show? Like, this is a weird question, but I love that you do that. You have that. You have this great career. It's like you have your reputation is solid, and
thanks.
like people know you from that for sure, and like especially comics, like, oh, Brian Kiley, yeah, he writes for Kiley. There's a kind of like this mythic like whisper about you, like when you come to comedy clubs. Sincerely, they're like, oh, Brian Kiley's here. He like writes for Conan O'Brien.
You know, I have to admit, I'm the one actually doing the whispering.
Hey, spread the word. They don't know what you look like, so you're just like Brian
This guy's
Kiley.
really funny. I'm telling you. When you hear
Well,
this
that's
gets
true. Like comics revere that, and especially respect it because you're a writer. Like I feel like their writers get this like kind of like offensive lineman like respect of like they're not getting any of the credit and they're doing all the work. But so you have that, but then you also go out at night and do stand up.
Well, that you talk about your own ego. Sometimes you need your own laughs,
Right.
You know. And the other thing about stand up is, and I didn't fully appreciate this until I started writing for someone else, is that you get to make all the decisions. Because sometimes you have a great joke or a joke that you love, and they go nah, and sometimes it's for an arbitrary reason.
Right.
You know what I mean? And but as a stand up, you go, I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna say that, and you're the producer.
You're
in
the
a way.
captain, yeah.
You're the and you make all the decisions. So it's just fun having that kind of freedom, even if it's a bad decision. It's like, ooh, I shouldn't have said that. You know what I mean? But at least you're the one that you kind of get to control, have your, hear the laughs for you,
Sure.
and also make all the decisions and all that kind of stuff.
So you still love doing the stand up. That's why you're doing it.
I do. For me, there's nothing like having a great set, as you know. And also when you have a new joke that works,
The best feeling.
that's why when I see a comic, like sometimes we'll see a guy where they've got no new jokes in 10 years or something, or whatever. And you're like, what? What are you doing all day? You know?
I have a theory that's what causes the comic depression that everyone thinks is so famous. Where like they're like, aren't you all depressed? You're like, I don't know the guys that let themselves get depressed, but if you keep bringing in fresh things, you have a fresh reason to be excited every day.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. I think that gives you that enthusiasm of,
Yeah.
because there is that feeling of wait till they hear this, and then most of the time it's like, oh, they heard it and they weren't
Right.
really interested. But when it does work, I love that
But
feeling.
it's that gambler's addiction.
Yeah,
You're
that's
rolling
true.
that dice. Like, are they going to like
That's
this
true.
or not? Is the same as being like, am I going to win or not?
So let me ask you. So if you're at Comedy Magic and that's an incredible club. So it's Saturday night. It's packed. Are you doing new stuff, or are you just killing with your best stuff?
I never kill with my best stuff because I feel I'm most tired of my best stuff.
Right. Interesting.
But it's definitely never like I just wrote this morning stuff. It's that middle stuff
I
that
see.
needs to be like tuned. So I still have that security of knowing
Yes.
that this has worked on the road.
right. So you may have tried it out earlier in the week or something
Yep.
like that, or last week or
Yeah.
whatever. Right.
Because there's been times where I'm behind that curtain listening to the guy before me just crush, and I'm thinking like, nope, not trying that new one.
Absolutely. You can bail out so many. I mean, and I'll go and it's like, I'm going to do 4 new jokes. Like, I'm not doing 4. You know
what am I,
mean? Like,
crazy?
Absolutely. And especially where if everyone's killing, you don't want to be the guy like, everyone's great except for that one guy. What was that? You know
he
what
had
I
his
mean?
notebook out there.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Yeah. And you just, absolutely. But
Wait, where do the two of you guys work out the brand new jokes? First time out there.
I'll do it in like us, this, some of the smaller shows or smaller crowds or a Tuesday night or something like that. And I might do it. I won't do it on a Saturday in the big room. I might sneak one in the little room.
Yeah, like 1 or 2,
Yeah.
especially if it's in the middle of killing or something.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'll do all mine like ponchos, like a show like that,
yeah,
where there's
yeah.
zero stakes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or like if like occasionally like Flappers is generally pretty good when I'm there, but there's been nights where you go in that room and there's like 15 people. And you're like, oh yeah, I'm doing all new.
Yeah,
I'm doing
absolutely.
all new. Or like and those are the exceptions. Those 2 examples I just gave you. I do all my new stuff, or like 99% of my new stuff on the road. I just put it in the middle of my stuff, and I always get so excited because there are people that come and see me again and again in all the different markets. Like when I come back, and I watch them get disappointed because I open with the same bit. I've been opening with the same bit for like probably 3 years now. That's chunk about Mexico. And then right when I launch into the new stuff, like right after that Mexico bit, because I've got everyone, I watch them go, oh, Oh, he's got a bunch of new stuff
Yeah,
for us.
yes.
All right. Yeah.
There was a guy in Boston who's, I don't want to say his name, but he was just a huge star there and just
Right.
loved.
David
And I-
Ortiz.
Dan Cook.
and I used to open for him, and I remember they knew his act inside and out.
Oh, yeah.
One time he loses his place, the crowd tells him what his next bid is.
Unbelievable.
Yes, unbelievably.
Oh,
but
boy.
but
a
they came
nightmare.
back each, all the time to see him. I mean, they just loved him.
The comedian didn't know how comedy worked, and the audience didn't know. They're like, we love this guy's monologues. Because that's what it is, right?
Yeah.
If they're memorizing it, I think that was the fascinating thing about Brian Regan. I've always heard is that like people will recommend jokes to him,
Right,
like
right.
afterwards. He'll do all this stuff that he's working on or doing, and then he'll be like, any
They'll do requests. or
any
whatever.
requests, and then not only will they request like shout something, but while he's doing the bit, they'll do it with him, like they're singing along to a song.
That's so unbelievable.
Yeah, it's incredible
Yeah,
to me.
that's pretty cool.
What was your first late night?
So so not talking about like comedy, I'm like Evening at the Improv or something like that.
No, like Letterman.
Like, yeah. So so my first one was the Tonight Show with Leno.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. I
Yeah.
got those backwards. Okay.
Yeah, and he so Jimmy Brogan was the guy, and I had come out to LA. I was living in Boston. I came out to LA, and I auditioned wherever I think it was the there used to be an improv in Santa Monica.
Okay.
So I went on before Brogan in Santa Monica, and it went great.
I
So
love
you
Jimmy
just- you
Brogan,
just
by the
psyched.
way. Just side note. I love him.
Oh my God, he's the nicest guy, and also
Great guy.
such a quick-witted guy,
Yes.
and classy guy. So he went through my set, and he liked about 3/4 of it. So I was like, okay. So I took that, and I went back home, and I wrote more stuff. And it's so funny. In the old days, you had to hire someone to get a tape for you. So,
Oh,
you had
wow.
to have someone come with a tripod and have the camera. And,
that makes sense.
you
Yeah.
know, all that stuff. And I remember I was doing this benefit, and it's just like it's packed and the crowd's great, and I'm dressed up and all this stuff, and the camera there, whatever. And can I swear here? Or
Yeah,
whatever?
yeah, say whatever you want.
Fuck yeah.
So okay,
Thank
so
you.
I'm doing my set, and out of the kitchen, these 7 dildos. I mean, just these chefs come out with these flaming cakes, and they just parade around the room in the middle of my set, and then go back in the kitchen. It was like,
Why would they do that?
it's like, you fucking assholes! I'm getting it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because the crowd had dinner,
Yeah.
and then they had me,
You
and then they got
ruined my
dessert.
tape.
Oh my
Yeah.
God. It was like, and you have to hire some to. It's like, and
Yeah.
this was like it's like, but it takes forever to get a tape.
Yeah, it's hard enough now.
So you
we
submitted
can like
that tape?
record
Yes.
anything.
Yes, pardon?
So you submitted that tape.
I didn't submit that tape.
Okay.
But
Oh,
I finally,
man.
I finally
Blurs.
got one. And then I send it, and I come home from a gig one night, and just a message on my answer machines, and Brogan saying, "Yeah, I watched your tape, and yeah, let's book a spot."
That's great.
And it was like,
Awesome.
I'm sorry, what was that? Do you know what I mean? Like I had to play it like over like 10 times, But yeah, so it was pretty exciting.
And so then once that happened, how long after till you're walking out there on the Tonight Show? Month?
I would say less than 2 months, I think.
Okay.
And I went out. It was July 13th, 1991. Does that sound right? Or 93? 93, maybe 93, I guess.
Nice.
And it was the night of the All-Star game.
Oh, there you go.
Which you're conflicted.
Yes, I was like, wait, I don't want to watch me. I got to see. So it was really exciting.
Yeah.
And I just remember, we're waiting at the hotel, my wife and I, and this big stretch limo comes, and it's like, oh shit. And then it just drove off, and then this other town car came and goes, you're like, oh, okay. It's always that kind
It's
of thing.
all
of like,
happening.
yeah,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
okay.
Back to reality.
whatever.
Were you nervous?
Oh yeah, I was so nervous. And actually, that's one thing for all this sets I've done on late night. It's almost like the stages of death. You go through like you have these different things, and at one point, every time there's a, why did I do this?
Right.
I'm gonna bomb. This stuff isn't good. Do you know what I mean? And there's a period of terror
Right.
every time. And I remember, and I've done enough now to go, oh, this is just a period of terror. Do you know what I
Right.
mean? And I remember being at Letterman, where I go to bed at midnight, and at 4 a.m. I wake up, I'm gonna bomb. This is
Oh, wow.
terrible. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And then, and I remember one time with Leno, they picked me up at the hotel and they drive me there, and at that feeling in my gut of, oh my God, why did I put myself in this situation?
Right.
But now I just know that's just one of the steps.
Right.
And so it doesn't throw me, but it's, yeah, it happens.
It is such a
happens every
waste
time.
of time, like worrying too, if you think
Yeah.
about it. Like, well, after you get off stage, you're like, that went great. Like all this,
Yes.
like endorphins and like everyone hugging you and
Yes.
like, oh, that was great. You know, that feeling of going, why did I spend all those days
Well, I do feel
wasting my time?
yeah, that's true. I mean, sometimes it can really make sure you've cut your set down.
Yeah, that's true.
You know
Yeah,
what I
that fear
mean?
can make you disciplined
Yes,
for sure.
absolutely. But the first time I did Letterman, I didn't know I was in the running. And this is what happened. I'm at my desk at work at Conan. And 1 in the afternoon, Eddie Brill calls me. He goes, this is a weird question. Can you do the show today? And I go, yeah.
Yeah, you're not gonna say no.
Yeah, and I always kept my suit in my office because what would happen is at Conan when we were in New York is sometimes somebody would cancel.
Yeah.
And he'd be like, get out there. It's like, well, you know.
Pinch
so
hitter,
I
dude.
kind of had to have a set ready and, and they would go, can you do the show tomorrow? And I'd be like, I'm not really, I've got maybe 2/3 of a set. And they go, okay, well, you'll be the second guest and you'll be doing whatever. And there were times where I'm literally writing jokes that morning to go on.
Sure.
It's like, oh my God, I don't want to be doing new
I love
stuff
it.
on
But it's kind of like a
TV.
nightmare.
Yeah.
How many
Yeah,
comics
absolutely.
were in that room where they could choose between the bunch of you?
Well, in the old days, for whatever reason, the other guys just weren't like Lori's always got a set, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
But in the
really-
old days before her, the other guys just weren't doing it very often, So
Nice.
they were kind of like, get out there.
Yeah,
That's
loaded
great.
gun.
So with the Letterman thing, so he calls me and says, can you do the show? And I said, sure. So he calls me back. He's like, okay, you're on. He said, Dave is sick. Bruce Willis is
Oh,
hosting.
I saw this in your reel that he was introducing you, but I
Yeah.
didn't know why. he
Yeah.
was
So
introducing
Bruce Willis has introduced me because he was supposed to be the first guest and Dave was sick. So they bumped him up to host. So now they needed somebody. So I said, okay. So I turned to the guy sharing an office with Michael Gordon. I'm like, they just asked me to do Letterman. They said Dave's sick and Bruce Willis is hosting. Eddie Bill calls me right back. Don't tell anyone that Dave is sick and Bruce Willis is sick. So I said, well, the cat's out of the bag.
Yeah.
So I just got my suit and just went over and did it. And I kind of didn't have time to be nervous.
Sure.
I had a good night's sleep from the night before because I didn't know and all that stuff. And I just thought, well, just go do your best stuff. But, when I was 25, I had auditioned for Letterman and Robert Morton, the producer at the time, came backstage and he told me I was very good. And I got on the Letterman show 17 years later.
Jeez.
Wow.
That was before then when I finally got the call because
Yeah.
they kept going, yeah, maybe,
Yeah.
you know what I
He's
mean?
funny.
Yeah, and I had auditions and there was always Zoe Friedman liked me, but there was someone else there who was like, nah. And
Right.
she would be kind of push me and he'd whoever it was, whatever. And then it just worked out. And so I did it. And then a year later I did it and they're like, this guy's been on the show before, blah, blah. And Dave's like, I don't remember this guy. And it's like, well,
Yeah.
you were sick.
Bruce Willis
Yeah.
remembers this
Yeah,
guy.
So, but I had the last time I did it, I think it was the last time I did it, they had a week of shows where they had U2 doing every night at the end.
Weird.
Oh wow.
So when I get there, they go, we don't have a dressing room for you because U2's taking up all the dressing rooms. So you're just going to be in the green room. So the green room was on the first floor where their show was, and the dressing rooms are on the third or fourth floor or whatever it is. So I'm in the little green room, and they come up and they go, oh, do you mind if while you're on, if U2 hangs out in the green room? I mean, it's your dressing room. Do you mind? And I'm like, you tell those Irish bastards. No.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
It's like, yeah, of course.
They didn't get enough.
So I go and I do my set and I come off and I come in and I'm just in a room with, it's just you two and me.
Amazing.
So, and they all introduce themselves and they're like, oh, it's like Bono's, it's like, yeah, I know. And
Yeah.
then, like,
Bono was
Does he
it?
really
Yeah.
introduce himself as like, hi, I'm the Edge?
No, they probably
he said the Edge.
Okay.
I swear to God. I swear to God. And it was
That's
like,
great.
nice to meet you. The Edge.
That's so funny because I always think to myself, like, famous people probably just don't even do that half of the introduction.
Right.
They're like, hey, what's your name? Nice to meet you. Because they just know. But like, I guess he had to inform you. That's
Well,
really
it was
funny.
really pretty. It was so. That was probably the most surreal moment in my career to be in a room with just those four guys and me.
It always also sort of looks like you sold out because like normally you come and you hug your wife, and then the next time you're just like, I just walked over
Yeah.
in a suit and did it. I didn't
Yeah.
need my family there. And then this time Bono is giving you.
Yeah,
like,
that's your entourage is you too.
Well,
it
yeah,
was
the most
It
famous
was pretty
guy.
hilarious.
What does your wife think of your comedy, or just comedy in general? I'm always fascinated by comedy girlfriends and comedy wives.
Oh,
I don't know how much I should say about that. I do think I try to be careful.
Okay.
But there's still be some jokes that bum her out. I have
Really?
Yeah.
Well, just like I always feel like every woman that's ever been in my life, and then I know so many comics, and I always am peers with comics that are older than me for some reason, for whatever reason that is. And maybe it's because I'm at the Comedy Magic Club or the Cellar, and so it's like they're my heroes that I'm excited to become friends with. And it seems like all the wives and girlfriends I've ever met of comedians slowly feel jealous of it, or slowly feel like they're competing with it, or just they've heard enough. They're just like, I get the jokes. Yes, they're very agitated at the business, unless they're like the first year, and then they're like, no, I go to all his shows and he's great, and you're like, well.
I did used to know a guy who his wife came to every show, and this is a guy that would not change his act for 10 years, and his act was funny.
Yeah,
and she would sit in the back and laugh, and you want to go, and the 8,000th time you've heard that?
yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that kind of astounded me.
I had a girlfriend who would go to the shows all the time, and she would laugh at everything, which made me feel very good. She's a great laugher, very generous laugher. But I do think there was a 25% chance she was going to all the shows just to make sure I wasn't hooking up after the show.
Sure.
It was more of a babysitting.
yeah, she had the last laugh. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. She's like, well, he's not having sex with anyone but me after this.
That's funny. But I'll cross the line sometimes and do a joke that she bums out. I mean, I'm very conscious of are the women in the crowd laughing, because I don't want to have that kind of act. Do you know?
I've never thought that once.
Yeah. And it shows in your act.
Yeah,
it shows
absolutely.
in your
Just
life.
very mean.
What about your son?
My son is my best laugher.
Oh, that's great.
That's incredible.
And when he went off to college, it was like, what? Don't go. It's like, sometimes you're doing a show and there's like 12 people in that table of 6 that's laughing, gets up to leave. He's like, well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
You're holding this thing together here. But you've met him at Comedy Magic, and he's been coming down. I mean, now he's he's just graduated from college, but he would come down even at age like 14, 15, 16, and we'd drive to the gig together. He'd come with me, and it was so fun hearing his views of comics on the way back. He'd be like, that guy, he's got no act. He'd see something like that. And he'd be like 15 years old, and
it's great.
I'd be doubled over.
Yeah.
And
was he always right?
Well, it's, it was so interesting, his opinions, because, I'd do the show in the big room, and then I'd go in the little room, and he'd stay in the big room and watch.
Right.
So he'd see comics that were on after me that I didn't get to see. And I remember when he was like 14 or so, Alan Havey has this great joke about that. Sean tells me in the car, he goes, oh, Alan Havey has this great joke, and it's a joke about his wife. I've got a good wife, not a perfect wife. A perfect wife's a CIA agent. You come home, how is work, honey? Can't talk about it. Perfect. It's a really funny joke.
Yeah.
But he tells me this, and it's like, you're 14. That's like a 40-year-old guy.
Right. Why are you identifying with that joke?
You know what I mean?
You raised an old man.
It really made me laugh that he was so sophisticated.
Yeah, he's like, but I know that I won't be interested in my wife's stories.
But on the other end of the spectrum, and I'll tell a story because I know he won't mind, but one time both my kids came, and my daughter she was like 13 or 14, and my son was, 15 or 16. And I do the show in the big room, and I go in the little room, and I come back out in the big room, and my friend Steve Wilson's on, and he's doing his a very funny bit about getting his prostate checked.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, and the doctor is finger fucking my asshole. And he's doing this. And I look over, and my 14-year-old daughter is holding her sides, bent over, like it's the funniest thing she ever heard.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh God,
it's
the
rebellion.
Worst.
Yeah,
like
you're
I'm
like,
the worst
yes.
parent in the world. You're just like, oh, what have I done?
I always just think to myself, like, how cool, and I don't want to like say anything awful about my dad, but just how cool it would be if you were my dad. Like I get to watch my dad. Like you're doing, like you've chased your dreams, and you're being a stand-up comic, which you don't typically. Like my dad, he didn't do those things.
Our parents didn't have dreams.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like he didn't even think that was a thing. Like if you'd have told my dad, like, why didn't you get into stand-up? He'd be like, what?
Well,
what are you talking
absolutely.
about?
One of the coolest things for me. One time my son had, he plays baseball, and there was a doubleheader. So I went to his doubleheader, and then we had to come right to my gig to Comedy Magic. So he comes with me. So he's still in uniform.
That's awesome.
And he saw me do 2 shows, and we came up. So it's kind of cool that I got to watch him play 2 games. And he came and saw me do 2 shows, and we drove home.
Double header.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. And I think one time he was flying home from somewhere from the East Coast or whatever, and people were watching the TVs on the plane, and the guy next to him was watching my Comedy Central half-hour special,
Nice.
and he's sitting there. He's like, "That's my dad." And the guy's like, "What?" Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that
What are
was
the
kind of a
odds?
crazy. Like that
That's
was
cool.
like, okay, that's
Yeah,
a
and
pretty cool
you've
moment.
planted the seed in his brain from definitely both your kids' whole lives that like, yeah, you can do these jobs. Like,
Right,
this
right.
is a reality. It's not. These aren't people on TV that are like made up. Like this
Yeah.
is.
Well, it's also, my daughter, she goes to Boston College and she works on the student activity board. So she booked me last year. First,
That's risky.
She lowballs me in the cash.
Yeah, of course.
And then she canceled me because they couldn't find a venue.
Oh.
Yeah, and then I was like, Allie, the school's not enough time in the school year. Oh, it'll be fine. Then she's like, oh, you're right. That we couldn't find a venue. So I did it last fall with Gary
Lowball me
Gulman.
on the cash.
Yeah. So it was Gary Gulman and me. And to have my daughter bring me up, and it was actually, she goes to Boston College, which is my alma mater.
Yeah.
So that was kind of cool to go back to your old school and then have your daughter bring you on stage and all that stuff.
Wait,
So-
did your daughter make you the opener?
Yeah.
Okay, I wanted to make sure I got that
Gary's-
right.
Gary's a big act, so there's nothing wrong with that. So it was pretty cool.
That is awesome.
Yeah, that was a fun dad moment.
So
I'd say.
both of you guys, or both of your kids, like, that's just such a cool thing. I think in my mind, like, I think my parents' profession. I love my parents, but like
Sure,
their
sure,
professions
sure.
stink. I wouldn't be like, wow, I can do anything I want. Like I wouldn't think that. But
Well, I
awesome.
remember when they were 2 and 4, they came to one of my shows because the clown from the Big Apple Circus had befriended my friend Tony V and was supposed to be at the show. So they wanted to meet him. And as it turned out, he couldn't make it or whatever. But the next day, my kids were playing in the yard, and they're literally 2 years old, 4 years old. And my son's 4, and he goes, I went to your gig. I was laughing. And my daughter goes, I wasn't laughing.
That's amazing. Yeah, she's still mad she didn't see that clown. That's what's going
I know.
on.
It's like, you didn't have any makeup on. What's going on?
What made you decide that you wanted to do like what at what age were you like, oh, this is what I'm gonna do?
Well, it's funny. I didn't know that you could be do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like I wanted to be, I remember when it was St. Patrick's Day and I was 8 or 9 years old. I guess I was 9 years old. I was in the 4th grade, and I had a joke, and I got on the radiator in front of the class to tell the
Nice.
joke. And I remember I was at
Yeah, we can't tell jokes at the same level as people.
You had
We
to get
gotta-
up, you had to get up. So I stand up
Find
on
a
the radiator.
stage, man. Find a stage.
And I remember I was getting I don't know what I was saying, but I remember I was ad-libbing, and I remember I was getting laughs. And I rember the teacher laughing and being like, all
You were
right.
riffing already?
I was riffing. I riffed much more then than I did. I was much looser then. But it was a joke that my mother had told me of. It was St. Patrick's Day, and the joke was, why is Ireland getting bigger and bigger? Because the capital is Dublin.
Oh
That's the
my
joke.
gosh.
But I would have loved to heard what the ad libs were that I was
Yeah,
getting laughs
yeah.
at before I did, So that was pretty cool. But I remember, that thing of that was the highlight of your day if you got the whole class to laugh or
Sure.
whatever. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't the A student and I wasn't the star athlete or whatever. But if I got the big laugh in class or whatever, that's what made my day.
It's way better, I think.
Yeah.
The athlete can be booed at
Yeah.
times.
That's true.
Class
Especially-
clown's always a legend.
especially in school when kids are so
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah.
When also
They're not
like
gonna
there's
laugh unless
I had to
it's-
get to a certain age before I realized that that being the smart kid is honorable or noble. We picked on the smart kids. We're like, oh yeah,
yeah.
nerds, And then
Yeah.
like if you either are or aren't an athlete. So like I
Yeah.
knew pretty young I'm not gonna be the athlete. But for class clown, I was like, this is great.
Oh yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I get a ton of time off every time I get suspended. It just gives you- and it turned out to be a career.
You did it
Well,
for
I
the
like
time
the riff
off?
that you had that you said to Sean and my son and me when we were in the green room about in high school. Do you remember this? You were talking
No.
about how you'd be disruptive, and everyone's like, "This guy's a hot shit," and they love him. And then you
Yeah.
go to college, and people are paying. They're like,
I-
"Hey, quit fucking around. We
we pay for this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
stop being disruptive or whatever." And I like that they turned on you when you
Yeah,
went to college.
it was at Green River Community College,
Yeah.
and all the kids, which I would be going for my GED technically courses, and I remember just sitting in there and like the teacher would say something, and I was like, "Yeah, I bet she did," and then everyone's like looking at me like, "Hey man, like you gotta go, you gotta get out. Like we paid for these classes,
But
we
it's
want to
also-
be here."
You had a whole life of yelling that shit out and getting rewarded
Legendary,
for it.
yeah.
And then suddenly them turning on you, you must have been like, "What?"
It was so
You don't
confusing.
understand, yeah.
I dropped out. I was like, I can't
Yeah.
do this.
Yeah, you're the community college Roseanne.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like when I was like in 5th grade, I would say like just shit really loud, and they carry me out on their shoulders. Like he's a
Yes,
legend.
Absolutely.
He's our leader now.
Yeah.
Well, so your son plays baseball.
Mhm.
At what level is he playing baseball? And
He's playing in a college league. He plays in the Prospect League.
okay,
He's playing for the West Virginia Miners,
nice.
and
So he's under 18.
nice. And see,
I didn't even get it.
You say I love jokes.
I was like, Aaron, what? yeah, you did like that.
Absolutely. So he just graduated. So he's still eligible. This is his last to be eligible in this league, but it's a pretty good league. Like, one of the teams had 4 kids drafted a couple weeks ago.
Oh, nice.
Which is pretty amazing.
Any
So,
Cubs?
I don't know.
All right.
I don't know.
Because I have a baseball and I got a pen and we can get this.
So you're a Boston Red Sox guy, a Boston guy. You don't strike me as a Boston dude at all by
well,
any
thank
of the
Yeah, you're
stereotypes
polite.
of Boston. Just at any of the
And
stereotypes.
you
Like,
pronounce the letter R. It's
You asked if you
confusing.
could swear. I mean,
That's
there's a
true.
lot of
That's
things.
you're sensitive to people's feelings and women's rights and minorities. Like I was in Boston just 2 weekends ago. I was at Laugh Boston for the great club.
That's great. I wish
so fun
Oh,
there.
that's awesome.
But when you do go to Boston, you don't strike me as like the Boston type.
Well, it's there's so much anger there, and sometimes it's amusing, and
Yeah.
then sometimes it's like, but you know,
That
it's like, come
tone.
on, yeah, you know, yeah. There's definitely things that are, especially when you've been away from a while. You're like,
Yeah.
oh, I forgot how angry people are.
Even the
here.
nice people are strangely aggressive.
Yeah,
Like Brian Moots, we were in Boston and comedian, very funny guy. We were in a car and we watched another car slam into the other car in front of it, and just a fender bender, but like, you know, pretty hard, 15 miles an hour or something. And the guy gets out and he looks at the bumper, he looks at the other bumper, and he goes, that's what bumpers are for. And he gets back in his car and leaves. And I was like,
That
he
is
was
so
even
interesting.
mean about like giving this like girl a pass on blasting into the back of
That
his
is
car.
so funny.
It
Wow.
was so weird.
Do you have a theory on why so many comics come out of Boston? Like, I feel like there's a ton of Boston comics
There is
that are successful. Like,
Um,
I think it's just part of growing up there. Like, there's something
yeah,
that's
I do think
built in
there's
you.
something about the Irish and the storytelling.
Yeah.
I feel like that's an old tradition and stuff like that. And now it's also a vent for the anger, I guess.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, yeah,
So,
and tons of New York comics say that about the Jewish community.
Yeah,
So there's so
yeah.
many Jewish comedians from New York, and there's so many Irish comedians from Boston. That was the one
Yes.
bad, I would say, bad kind of like label of Boston comedians is when I first went there, it was like 2007 or whatever, not even that long ago. But all the comedians were like white guys. And there was like one comic that was like, there was no females.
Yeah.
I didn't see any females.
Yeah.
And I saw one black guy, and his whole act was about how he was the only black guy. And I was like, well, you're not gonna be able to do that in other towns.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
so it's just like a bunch, and they were all really funny and nice guys, but it was all the comic scene kind of came from the same angle, I felt like.
Yeah, there was a lot of that in the old days. Although it's funny, like there was a very difference between sort of the downtown Boston and then right next door is Cambridge,
Mhm.
which is very PC and has been for a long time. It kind of like that was the first term I ever heard of being politically correct, and that was like ahead of the curve
Yeah.
in Cambridge. So that club, we used to work at the Catch a Rising Star, and it was Laura Keitlinger and Janine Garofalo and Wendy Liebman and David Cross and Mark Maron
Oh,
and
wow.
Louis C.K. and so on. So there was more of a mix of sensibilities or whatever, you know. And if I had a joke that worked in Cambridge and it worked in downtown at Nick's or something, it's like, okay, I've bridged the gap here.
Both
of them
That's
work,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, you know. But like the downtown club, you might talk about the Red Sox or the Patriots or something. You wouldn't talk about that stuff in
Yeah,
Cambridge. They have
Janine
no interest.
Garofalo's not
Yes.
ranting about
Yeah,
the Red Sox.
Absolutely. But then the Cambridge, somebody would have like a 10-minute bit on Sigmund Freud or something.
Sure.
And they bring it downtown. It's like, you're going to get beaten.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
exactly.
Like, you know, it's so, trying to bridge that gap was tricky sometimes.
The
but
first time I ever played Boston, do you know the comedian Don Zolo?
I don't.
Okay, first time I ever played this, I've never told the story on any kind of thing like this. I go into the green room, and it's just a coincidence that I got booked in October, and the Red Sox are in the World Series.
Sure.
So one of my nights, the Red Sox are playing at home in like Game 3 of the World Series or something like that. So it's just no one's coming.
Right.
But
Sure.
I'm, foolishly optimistic at all times. And I'm
Sure.
like, it'll be fine. It'll be a good show. It's not a big deal. Who cares? If there's 3 people, we'll make them laugh. And I go back into the green room, and I'm meeting all the comics kind of for the first time, and maybe 1 or 2 of them the second time. And I come in and go, you know what, guys? It might not even be that bad. There's still 40 minutes till showtime, and my demographic is like mostly girls and like gay dudes. So I think we'll be okay. And Don Zola, without missing a beat, just like, you're in Boston. Even broads and homos love baseball. And I remember everyone in the green was just laughing, and I was like, Jesus, like you can't talk like that.
Yeah.
But it did get a ton of laughs. But then also, he was right. Like there was
yeah.
no one at the show.
Oh yeah.
It was insane. There was more people out in the bar of the like comedy club area watching that game
Yeah.
than it was brutal. Yeah. So, what does your son and daughter want to do?
My son studied politics,
Okay.
so I'm hoping that he goes to law school, and I'm hoping my daughter is like she's a really good writer. I would love for her to be a TV writer. Like if I could work with my daughter, you know what I mean? Like if
that'd
we
be
worked in the
amazing.
same, just like that would be like the greatest thing ever. You
She's
know?
like,
like
is
the
she a
Griffiths.
generous laugher too, like your son?
She's a little tougher, but she's very funny. Both my kids are funny, but she's a little tougher to give it up. But when
She's
she
been
does,
tough
it's pretty
since she's
good.
2.
It's pretty
Yeah,
good.
I
Yeah,
She didn't
At
laugh
2,
back
it's
then.
pretty
laugh.
good. You know, but she's a little bit like I am, where if something really gets you, it really gets you.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I feel like every time I'm at the Comedy Magic Club, when I'm an audience member, I don't do this. When I'm in life, I don't do this. I laugh a lot.
Right.
But like when I'm watching a comedian, I'm like, ooh, that's good.
Oh, yeah,
Like I don't
yeah,
know
yeah.
why I can't.
You should appreciate
Yes, there is. You're analyzing. And there are things like I'm reading jokes all day.
Oh yeah.
Never I think, oh, that's a good one. Oh, that's a great joke or whatever. No, there's, I feel like I haven't laughed since the Cuban Missile Crisis. Or something, It's like I feel like I'm laughed out, but I do in real life. I laugh. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, or like
Yeah.
Simpsons. Like I'll laugh like my butt off if I've watched like an episode of Futurama. I'll just laugh the whole time. And then like I'm watching because that's when Neighbor Gatsby's got a great observation where he's like, we hang out with the funniest people in the world. Why would I want to hang out with my wife's friends? Like I hang out with the
that's
funniest
nice.
people ever.
Oh,
And
that's a good point.
And even when I watch the funniest people ever, like Bill Burr was on the same show as me the other day, and I just remember being like, "Oh my! One, I can't believe he's getting away with this. Two, this is so smart and funny." And I wasn't laughing at all. I was just like smiling and kind of. It was weird.
Well, my daughter gets mad at me because she's better. Like when she was younger and she had her favorite show and I'd watch with her, whatever. You're not laughing. I'd be like, no, it's good. You know what I mean? And I actually think it was good, but it's like you see how the strings and you see the
Sure.
blueprints and
Right.
Who's your favorite comedian?
Oh boy, that's.
Before comedy and after. Or before
Well,
you started now.
I think when I was a kid, I loved Rodney Dangerfield and I loved Bob Newhart and I loved Woody Allen. And I always get in situations like this. I did some podcast with these two women. They're like, no women. And it's like there were barely any women when I
God.
started. You know what I mean? When I was a kid,
That
like
is
in
so
the
frustrating
70s,
to me.
Well, now there's a ton of great women
Yes.
comics, and especially in LA.
Yeah.
But when I was a kid, it was like Joan Rivers, and that was kind of it. And I didn't know who Joan Rivers was talking about. She told me the celebrities when, you're 9 years old. You're like,
Right.
I don't know who that is.
Also, when
you
she
know?
makes fun of some celebrity's dress, it doesn't really crack me
Yes.
up. It
Yeah.
just seems mean.
Yeah, that's true. Especially as a 9-year-old, you're like, I don't know.
I don't know.
The dress seemed fine to me. What do I know?
What's
you know?
a floozy?
Yeah. But in terms of now, I feel like there's too many to say. Like we're also spoiled that we get to work like with our friends.
Yeah.
And it's like you're hanging out with your friends and they're the funniest people in the world. So I'm afraid to single somebody.
Right.
I'm gonna
That's
forget
fair.
somebody if I stay.
When
know
it's
what I
also
mean?
like when you ask to like pick your favorite movie, like I don't know how many times I'll say that's my favorite movie. I say that all the
Yeah,
time. Or
sure.
like, oh, that's my favorite. Whatever. Like I have like 1,000 favorites on
Yes.
everything that I
Yes,
enjoy.
I
Oh, it's
do.
my favorite player growing up. And then like an hour later, I'll be like, it's my favorite.
Well, I
like
mean,
you just said.
it's irrational to make people pick one.
Right.
Yeah,
Like,
I
people are like,
guess
what's your
that's
favorite
right.
movie? I'm like, oh,
I really
seen a
did
million.
like Stephen Wright when I started. I mean, I still like him, but I was so impressed with because when you watch a lot of comedy, you see things you go, his stuff, it's so out there. You go, I never would have thought of that. There's other people's bits that you're like,
Yeah.
if I was on a deserted island by myself, I eventually would have thought of that. Do
Right.
you know what I mean? But his stuff, you're like, no,
Whimsical, absurd.
Yeah, it's so absurd. That kind of thing. There's no boundaries. He's not bound by time or space or whatever.
Segues.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that kind of freedom and imagination, I was always very impressed by.
I was just impressed with how economic he is. That's
Yeah,
what I
oh my
like.
God, yeah.
And it's frustrating when I look at like a new joke I have. It's just like all these extra words.
Well, he had that joke of, I lost a buttonhole. And that's the joke. And
Yeah.
it's so quick. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if there's a quicker joke in the world than that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it takes you a second to get it. And you're like, well, wait, but it's like, talk about economical.
Absolutely.
You know?
Well, and it's always those guys that jokes I think about all day. So like, the other day I was at a coffee shop and I bought 3 apples because we're going to a baseball game and there's gonna be 3 of us. They bring some snacks that they're not gonna get mad at me for bringing in. And then I immediately thought of Mitch Hedberg's joke with like, "Do you want a bag?" And it's like, "No, I juggle."
Right, sure.
It's so simple, but
Yeah.
like, or every time you get on an escalator, you think of Mitch Hedberg's one-liner about like escalators. Like
What's that joke?
he just goes, "An escalator can never break. It
just
can only become
become
stairs."
Yeah, that's right. That's a
You'll
great
never
joke.
see a sign that says temporarily out of order. It'll just say temporarily stairs. Sorry for the convenience. But it's like, I think in Stephen Wright's the exact same way. Like every time I'm in an airport, I picture a guy like trying to climb them through the window to get, because he locked his keys in.
Oh, right,
Trying to like get in the plane.
That's true.
Yeah, I like those kind of guys, but I don't know anyone. I feel like when I'm similar to the people I revere, nobody notices. They just think, "Oh, Jeff's great." But like when you're a one-liner comedian,
Sure.
people go, "Oh, he's just doing,
Yeah, right. That's
he's
true.
doing Mitch," and Mitch, I'm sure got, "Oh, he's just doing Hedberg,"
Right.
right? Like Demetri Martin, like they were like chased him out of town, like in the beginning, like
Wow.
because they're like, he's just doing what Mitch Hedberg did.
That's
But it's
interesting.
weird.
Yeah,
I don't know.
That's true.
I'm fascinated, like Woody Allen,
Well, I know he's controversial now or
right?
whatever.
But when you were starting,
But his stuff was so clever and visual, and there was I remember telling my son some of his jokes when there was a joke about the mythological creature that had the body of a lion and the head of a lion, but not the same lion.
That's a good
So
joke.
I remember telling my son loved that joke, and he's 12 years old, and he's telling the kids in his little league team, and they're like, "What?" Do you know what I mean? Like, that's not a 12-year. It's way too sophisticated.
Yeah, he's way ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
That's kind of the curse of like being raised by like intellectuals. You're ruining his childhood.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like he's at another level, and they're like, "This kid's not funny."
Like, we should hit him with sticks. Like this kid doesn't get it. Well, thank you for being on this.
Oh, sure. This was so much fun.
Absolutely, we would love to have you back anytime.
I love talking about jokes and talking about like we were talking about that driving the gigs where it's like
Yeah.
you can just do that. It's so much fun being in the car and just talking comedy or whatever.
We never like. It's kind of crass, but one of my favorite things Doug Stanhope ever said is he was like talking about how stupid it is to take like a comedy class. And he was like, "Why is Kyle Cease like charging these young people like thousands of dollars to teach them comedy?" He's like, "If you want to learn about comedy, just buy a comic a beer. We never shut the fuck up about comedy." And it's like so true
Yeah.
because I only talk about like baseball, wrestling, comedy. Like it's my favorite like subject.
But also, every comic you talk to has a perspective or something or some insight that you go, "Oh, I never thought of it that
Right.
way," or whatever. Even no matter how long you're doing it, someone else has a different way of looking at it, and it's like, "Oh, it's kind of cool."
Actually, we do got to get there, but I want to ask you one more thing because I thought of it when you were saying it earlier and I just remembered. So you're writing all day, and then those are the jokes for Conan, and those are the topical. What is your writing process for your act if you're not keeping any of those for yourself? And when does it happen or how often?
Well, sometimes it just happens in conversation. You're just talking to somebody, you make a joke about your life, and then you think, "Oh,
Yeah, I'll try
I could,
that. Yeah.
I could use that." Do you know what
And
I
so
mean?
then what? You save it in your phone?
Well,
or are you?
I will. I'll put it in my phone, and it's funny because sometimes you'll do that. You'll come up, say something off the cuff, and then someone will see that you didn't on stage, and they're like, "Oh, you're practicing your act on me." It's like,
No.
I didn't. It's the other
Yeah,
way around.
That's why it's
it
good
was
to only hang
upgraded
out with
into that.
comedians.
Yeah,
Because we
yeah.
know. I like
Absolutely.
to make all my friends just comics. So they don't-
And then I'll also, I don't know if you do this, but I'll see something, and I'll be like, "There's something funny about this. I don't know what it is yet,
Right.
but there's something." And I'll write down just areas sometimes on my phone, like, "Okay, let me explore this topic because I know there's something
Right.
funny about it."
How vague would that be though? Like yoga? Or like is it more
It's
vague
more
than
like
that?
it's more like hot yoga
Okay.
or something a little more specific or something where you go, "Okay, there's something that I can satirize on this."
Sure.
Somewhat. And sometimes it's just a tweet where it's like,
Absolutely.
it's funny on paper. It's not going to work on stage, but
We've been
that kind of
talking
thing.
about, I mean, me more so, but I've ran this by Aaron a few times. Just deleting my Twitter and looking through all those jokes and keeping it as like a journal because I'm not that comfortable with it being out there. And also, I
Right.
think that like I'm throwing away jokes now
I have that dilemma all
instead
the
of
time.
working on the joke and
Right.
making it something great. It's in the green period of the first part of the joke.
Well, you could still do it on stage and still develop it,
Yeah.
even if you've tweeted it. But I do think there are times where it's like, "Oh, why did I put that out there where if someone comes and sees me, they saw on Twitter. Do you know what I
Absolutely.
mean? Like that kind of, because there are certain jokes that it's like, that's just a perfect Twitter joke. It's not going to work on stage.
Right.
Does well there. That's
But
great.
are we?
you know?
But like, what was the year you started comedy or started pursuing stand up?
Well, I graduated from college in 1983.
So let's say it's 1983. Brian Kiley wouldn't have wrote something in his notepad that he found humorous, and then thought that's only good for Twitter because there's no Twitter.
right.
So it would have lived in this notebook, and you would have tried to develop it, and you would
Yes.
even know like this isn't there yet, but this is something that could be.
Absolutely. And I still had those jokes then that you go, oh, that's funny. Why doesn't it work on stage? There's different things. Sometimes a joke's funny on the page,
Yeah.
and but it doesn't for whatever reason work on stage.
Yeah.
The best one of the tweets I got with the most likes, I had this joke about, that country, the Ivory Coast.
Yep.
It's in
Yeah.
Africa.
Yeah.
It's the only country named for 2 brands of soap. It got like 2,000 whatever,
Yeah,
a
it's
huge
great.
thing for me or whatever. On stage, it's like people are like, what? Do you know what I mean? Like it's just
It's
a
just
written
missed, yeah,
joke
for some reason,
for
yeah.
whatever reason. You go, okay, and you want and like when I did it and it totally bombed. I want to go, folks on Twitter, people love it.
Yeah. People like it's a little pop. Yeah.
But
I thought about
Yeah.
that. I had a pretty rough Sunday show. The Sundays can be
Sure.
sometimes, and everyone liked me, but no one was crazy about me. It's just kind of like this
Sure.
polite Sunday audience.
Sure.
And I had just gotten back from Fenway, or I've been doing all these baseball stadiums this season.
PNC.
No, it couldn't have been this week.
Oh, okay.
But it was a Sunday after I just went to this baseball thing, and the whole show was just mediocre at best. And then I started riffing about how like it's stupid that you only get to go to first base when you get hit by a pitch. I was like, these guys throw like 80 or 90, but
That's
you only
true.
get first base? Like you should get a home run or a settlement.
Yeah.
Like that's assault. Like that is like if someone threw something at you that fast. And that was the only thing that crushed. And they were like, and I was like, I just thought of that off the top of my
that's
head.
funny. Well, I also wonder if it's like, if you get hit in the ass, okay, with a curveball, you get to go to first.
Right.
You get hit in the head with a fastball, that should be a home run.
Right.
Yeah.
Or and
He's
also
knocked
like
out.
the fact that how fans are just stupid. Just in general, baseball fans, football fans, we're all very stupid when we're in those seats. Someone hits a pop fly, everybody cheers like it's a home run every time. Or like a big percentage of the audience.
Especially right after a home run.
Oh yeah.
If the next guy hits a fly ball,
Every
everyone's
crowd.
like, here's another
Yeah.
one. And it's like, no, that's not even close.
Exactly.
Can of corn.
So what another dumb thing crowds do is when someone gets plunked, everyone goes, "Whoa," which is fine. I'm not mad about that. What I'm mad about is when the player stands up and is like, "Hey," everyone's like, "Oh, come on!" It was like, no, dude. If you've been hit by it, it hurts.
Yeah.
There's gonna be a moment of where like, do I fight this man?
Yeah.
He did
Yeah.
just technically assault me by all the laws that we have in society.
I do like the thing that like somebody will have like a no hitter with 2 outs in the 8th or something, and they hits the batter and the batter charges him. It's like, I don't think he's
Right.
trying to hit you. He's he's got a perfect
Right.
game going. No.
That wasn't what he was trying to do. Yeah.
like that stuff. It's like, what?
I thought about
Yeah.
one of the ones I still can't shut up about. I've brought this up a million times, never on the podcast, but when Mike Piazza broke his bat and
Oh
it went
my
flying towards
gosh.
Roger Clemens,
Yes.
and Roger Clemens was furious as if he could do that on purpose.
Yeah, what an idiot.
Yeah.
If I'm the commissioner, I give that guy a steroid test right
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
Like you're mad
absolutely.
at Piazza, like
Yeah.
this lovable face of baseball.
Well, also someone breaks their bat like that. There's no way. It's like, what are you talking
Illogical,
about? Yes.
Should
scientifically.
have thrown the inside fastball.
Yeah,
What do you
yeah.
want?
It's like Piazza's like, watch me hit Roger with the barrel of this bat.
And he must have just been so bewildered. Like, what are you doing?
Especially in the World Series.
Yeah.
Like, did he go up there with him? He's like, all right, this
Yeah.
bat's already broken.
Right.
So when I hit it, it'll saw it. He's trying to win the World Series.
And in Piazza's face, if you watch it, he is like, wait,
Relax.
we're fighting? Like, I don't want to fight this like mean Texan who's gonna crush me. And also, I'm sorry, I did. It was like he was so confused by the whole
that
thing.
had to be a steroid rage.
Oh,
thing. Don't you think?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, where are you at this week? This is gonna go up soon. So
Oh, I'm actually doing a rehab show for Karen Rontowski.
cool.
Yeah, it's like a women's halfway house.
Really?
on
Working with Lori
Saturday.
has really changed your career. I think. No. So how does a rehab show work? It's just
It's funny. I do a bunch of them, and you feel like you're doing a nice thing. Every face you look at, and you're like, whoa.
really
What happened to that guy? Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like that can really be, but you also feel like these people are so appreciative because they've been through so much.
Yeah.
You know,
They need some laughs.
They
Yeah.
need some laughs, and they're very, they're so. I think that a lot of them, they're in that AA being positive thing or whatever. So they're super supportive, but also you feel like you're doing a nice thing.
Yeah, I would love to do any of those
Yeah.
if you ever have
Sure.
a spot. Like that's the kind of I like doing places where they like clean comedy.
Yeah, and also where you feel like you did a nice thing is
Yeah.
when that happens, as opposed to just some drunken assholes
Right.
or whatever. You know what I mean?
Actually, I had a guy ask me if I would do a corporate for him. Not corporate, but like just come and do a spot. It's a charity. I can't pay you, but like, it's right by LAX. It would mean a lot to me if you could come. And I was like, what's it for? He goes, it's for children who have disease that only affects Jewish children. Like it's some unique disease to them. And I was like, oh God, that's not, and he's like, yeah, we're raising money. We want it to be a big success. And so I was like, yeah, I'll go. I didn't know that I'd be performing for the children
kids.
that has that disease.
They gotta tell you that. Yeah.
It was full of children. And then the
Yeah,
people who are like the parents or the aides so I was like, dude, like when I did like a fundraiser for like pit bulls that needed to be like just brought back into society from
dogs.
it wasn't just a dog audience.
I will
like,
say I do pretty well with pit bulls, but
yeah.
still look
I would have done better with the pit bulls than I did with the kids.
Oh yeah, they got to tell you that.
Awful.
Yeah.
It was such a nightmare.
Yeah, and the other thing about people go, hey, can you do the show? It's a benefit, and you're like, yeah. And sometimes it's like, it's homeless veterans or whatever. And you're like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, great. And other times it's like, yeah, it's Beverly Hills Junior High's softball play. It was like, wait a minute, what benefit is it? You know what I mean?
You
Like
need
somebody's-
uniforms. You're
Yeah,
like, no.
so it's like, I don't know about this benefit. You know what I mean? Like sometimes the causes, or sometimes you go and it's like, wait, white supremacists? Why we should maybe give me a heads up here. Then,
Yeah, exactly. I just don't know why they wouldn't tell you anyways.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell me what the cause is for here.
Shouldn't you be a little more proud of what we're doing? Like you want to tell me about it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you got that, but people, it won't be. You can't get people to come to that.
No, but next week.
No, just start doing drugs now. See him at the rehab.
We're going to Comic-Con next week.
Cool.
So
wow.
I'll be at Lestat's in San Diego, and then I'll be at the Madhouse
Nice.
in San Diego. So I'll be doing that next week.
Cool. And they can find that on your Twitter or website?
Yeah, absolutely.
BrianKiley.com, I'm guessing.
absolutely. They
Okay,
can go
cool.
to my calendar or Twitter. Yeah,
That was the only Funko Pop I've ever wanted in my entire life was the Conan O'Brien ones the first time they did San Diego Comic-Con.
Yeah,
I remember
yeah.
thinking, well, not the first time they did San Diego, but the first time they did them at the San Diego Comic-Con.
Sure.
I was there and I was like, I'm going to snag one of those. And they were like, no, you're not.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the lines were like, they were the fastest
So
selling.
funny.
They were like up on eBay for like $800.
Oh my
Oh,
god,
wow.
it's so
Yeah.
funny. Yeah, so that stuff is fun.
I love that place. Aaron, we got anything to plug, bub?
The 12th of July, Yoo-Hoo Room,
Nice.
9 p.m.
Flappers.
Nice.
Where we met, bro.
That's right.
The first time we ever met.
Yeah, and Brian.
And
Met Brian there, and
yeah.
you.
He was working right in front of the Yoo-Hoo room. Made me
That's right.
happy.
Nice.
Tony, anything to plug, bub?
Yeah, I got a big wiffle ball tournament this weekend.
Oh, that's right.
Hell yeah, you do.
So-
How? Yeah, but I know a lot of people in Seattle. I know a lot of people from Seattle listen to this, and you're a Seattle guy. So wait, they can actually go to your wiffle ball thing for
if they want-
$5
if they wanted to.
Yeah.
What
Where's
park is it at?
It's at my house.
Yeah, but they sell tickets $5.
My address is no.
How big are the teams?
It's like 6-person teams.
Wow.
Last year they had like 15 teams show up and do a little tournament.
Wow.
My dad hit a walk-off grand slam off my brother to win the
Legendary.
championship.
Your dad's
my
the goat.
God,
And I'm
that's awesome.
joining my dad's team this year, so I'm excited to
Oh, free
repeat.
agent.
It's such a big deal that Tony didn't even get to play in it last year, and he's in the family.
Yeah, I called home afterwards and like they had so much fun. I was like, oh, I feel terrible.
They're like teary-eyed, like you missed the greatest thing we've
Yeah.
ever done as a family.
I know, so I have to go back.
How many
to second.
innings is it?
I think they do like 5 innings each. Typical wiffle ball rules: pitcher's hand, first base, peg outs everywhere else.
Love
But
it.
you got to play one-handed, so you got to have a drink in your hand, and then you play one-handed.
Tony doesn't drink
I
alcohol.
don't drink, so I'll be drinking
But he'll have-
Gatorade,
yeah.
staying hydrated.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know,
Seems like an unfair advantage. If everyone else is drinking
Aaron said I
alcohol.
should drink
true.
a protein shake. You
Yeah.
know, stay.
That's right.
You should have to do like a hallucinogenic or something because you're like, I don't drink alcohol. Well,
Doc
it's unfair.
Ellis?
Why
Hey,
are we drunk and you're not?
Well, I'm on mushrooms, so it's
It levels it out.
Yeah, no,
I
but
mark my words.
I'm
This
excited.
place is temporary. Like a few years from now, I'm going to buy a place that has a yard where I can build a wiffle ball field. 'Cause
Field
it
of
doesn't. You
Field
don't
of
need money.
Dreams.
Like you could do that in a yard with like turf and stuff.
I think I remember hearing about Matt Hasselbeck
Yeah.
having he grew up outside of Boston, and he supposedly had a like mini replica of Fenway in
Really?
his,
That's
in his
awesome.
backyard that he'd play wiffle ball at.
I've Googled Mini Fenway and Mini Wrigley, and one is a Little League field, and one is a wiffle ball field that a guy made for like $10,000, and it's really I mean, incredible.
Yeah.
It's
That's killer.
so good. And also 10 grand, like that's a lot of money, yes, but not for the caliber of like the way the wall looks, the
Sure.
painted. It's like the
That's
dimensions.
awesome.
Right.
It's like my dream.
Wow.
Where am I going to be this week? I'm in Iowa at Penguins all weekend. Then after that, I go to Gotham Comedy Club in New York City. You can get tickets to that. I'm doing a one-nighter in Cleveland at Hilarities and a one-nighter at Helium in Philadelphia. So check that
Nice.
out, jeffdye.com. Thank you a million times for coming to my house
so much
and
fun.
being on the podcast.
Absolutely. You forget that you have microphones. You're just talking
Yeah, you
comedy
chill.
and comedy and
hanging.
baseball. I think
Yeah,
it's looking better.
that's all we do.
Yeah.
Sometimes afterwards, we just sit here and keep talking,
Yeah.
and we just stop recording.
Right, and then we start saying people's addresses and things we shouldn't say
Yeah,
about
I
people's
feel
wives.
bad. We're gonna blank out that, so the city won't be named where he
where
lives.
Andy lives?
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
that's
I
good.
was because again, I forgot the microphone. I was like, where does he live? I've seen him at Hugo's a billion times. Thank you again.
Sure.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Friendship.
How great! Fun episode. Aaron went rogue. Tony was all over the place, but you know we did our best. We love you, Brian Kiley. Thanks for being on the pod and coming into my home. Really fun episode. Love this guy. I'm so happy. I'd love to have him back. Also, yeah, thanks again to all the Patreons, subscribers, the patrons, whatever you're called. We love you, little Twitter critters, Jeff Diehards. I don't know what you're called, but we love you. Yeah, thanks for listening.